I need a smoother transition for the last.
Look, Morris, they got lasers and photons.
I'll support Flex. I'll support my friends, you know, whether or not they're high or low. And, you know, that episode, that chapter of his life was something that he gracefully got to the other side.
If you remember Flex Alexander, then you'd probably be speechless as to why he was gone for so long.
Couples out there, you have to keep doing what you did when you got the person to keep them.
After his big break on the series One-on-One, things didn't quite go as planned. Word going around was the producers cut him off.
So One-on-One was your main. And you completely ditched your side hustle.
Well, that was my first love.
But the reality is, that goes away.
Yeah.
Now this is now dormant.
Right.
Others claimed he was living way above his means and ended up losing control, which he confirmed.
I go to Burberry, spend $10,000, getting her stuff, and
he didn't tell me. I didn't know until he spent just recently.
But what's the real story behind it all? That's exactly what we're about to get into. So let's dive right in. Flex Alexander will always be remembered as that cool single dad from One-on-One.
Brianna, open this door. I know you are in there.
Go away, Daddy.
Flex was no stranger to financial struggles. Growing up, he'd seen his mom and grandma hustle paycheck to paycheck. But when One-on-One blew up, he was suddenly making $25,000 a week, and he started spending recklessly, living way beyond his means. He admitted that he wasn't even thinking about taxes, which ended up taking a huge bite out of his income. To make things worse, he and his wife SHANICE, who had been living large during those successful years, got caught in the trap of refinancing their home and pulling money out just to keep things afloat. Instead of solving problems, it just sank them deeper into debt. On top of that, Flex had put a lot of money into real estate, but those investments didn't go the way he hoped. Looking back, Flex himself admitted it was a rough time. In his own words, it was just at the wrong time, because that's when anybody who wanted a loan could get a loan. Anybody. It was just going, and they were setting us up to fail. Not too long after the fame and the money, Flex Alexander found himself in a place he never thought he would be: homeless. At one point, Flex and his wife SHANICE were really living the dream. They had their unlimited black card, the kind of card that made you feel untouchable, and money was rolling in like water. Flex once said that at the peak of his career, he was pulling in close to $1.3 million. But the problem was that the bills, the lifestyle, and the spending habits started piling up way faster than the income. By 2006, things started falling apart. The glow of success began to fade, and the reality of money mismanagement started to hit hard. By 2010, it reached rock bottom. SHANICE was getting ready for a show one night, about to jump into the shower, when she heard a knock on the door. It was the police. They were there to evict her and the kids out of the house. Just like that, the dream was over, and the family was forced to move out and start bouncing between rental homes.
Driving to an audition, she calls me. She's like, oh, the sheriff's here at the house. We gotta go. They tell us to get out. We got 5 minutes to a place with a pool. We gotta stay in a hotel and we're gonna have fun, and they got free food. And they were like, yay. So that innocence, man, was everything.
Looking back, Flex admitted he didn't have the training or the knowledge to handle money the way he should have. He told Yahoo Finance that financial education just wasn't something he had when he came into wealth. Like a lot of people who grew up without much, he knew how to spend it, but not how to manage it.
And I blame myself in the sense of just never learning, never having the example of how you budget and how you take care of your money.
Even through all of this, Flex wasn't abandoned. His friend and co-star, Kelly Perrine, spoke about it years later, saying he supported Flex no matter what, whether he was on top or at his lowest point. Kelly described that time in Flex's life as just a chapter, something he went through but eventually made it out of.
For me personally, I'll support Flex, I'll support my friends, you know, whether or not they're high or low. And, you know, that episode, that chapter of his life was something that he gracefully got to the other side of.
He was thinking about giving up and going back to New York. He said he didn't want to act anymore because he was getting frustrated with the industry and everything. And I encouraged him to keep going because I know how great he is. And also, he's not lazy.
And he was right. The storm didn't last forever. Flex and SHANICE fought through their struggles together. SHANICE would cry on his shoulder at night, and there were nights when Flex would cry on hers. But through it all, they refused to give up. SHANICE later shared how Flex would always keep her spirits up, reminding her, "Come on, we got it. God's got a plan for us. We are not going to give up." One of the lowest points for Flex was during their wedding anniversary. He was broke. He didn't have money to do anything special, not even buy a gift, and remembering that day still brought him to tears in an interview years later. That moment wasn't just hard for him, it was emotional for everyone listening, because it showed how tough things really got behind the scenes. But let's rewind for a second and look at where it all started. Flex wasn't born into riches or fame. He was born Mark Alexander Knox on April 15th, 1970 in Harlem. His parents, Althea Knox and Robert Whitehead, raised him in the projects of the South Bronx. Growing up there was rough. The streets were full of gun violence was everywhere, and the environment wasn't easy to escape.
You came up in the Bronx, you know, like you was a teenager during them heavy times.
Yeah, you've heard about, you know, gang life in LA and all that stuff, so you come here like, okay, I'll make sure I don't want to be in, you know, none of them areas or whatever, so, you know, I'm in the valley and I'm seeing all this stuff happen. I'm like, damn.
But young Flex had something that kept him moving: dancing. He was always at New York nightclubs, dancing the night away, and it was his crazy acrobatic dance moves that earned him the nickname Flex. That name stuck, and it ended up becoming his brand. His talent eventually opened big doors. He got his first major break as a backup dancer and choreographer for Salt and Peppa. And it was actually DJ Spinderella who gave him the call that changed his life. She invited him to go on tour with the group, and that opportunity put him on stages he never imagined he'd be on. But Flex was never just a dancer. In 1989, he took a dare from one of his friends and jumped on stage at the Uptown Comedy Corner in New York for amateur night. That's how he ended up doing stand-up comedy for the very first time. Even as a kid, he'd been known as a natural comedian, always cracking jokes, so it wasn't surprising that he did well. Since he didn't know how to build a proper comedy routine yet, he leaned heavily on impressions. His set included everyone from Edith Bunker to Bullwinkle, even Jesse Jackson, and he threw in some edgy street material about selling crack. To his surprise, the crowd loved it. That first taste of success on stage gave him the comedy bug, and he never looked back.
I got on at this club called the Uptown Comedy Club in Harlem. It was the hottest club in New York. Everybody came through. I mean, we had everybody from Wesley Snipes.
From that point, Flex was juggling two lives: dancer by day, comedian by night. He was still traveling and performing with Salt and Peppa, but at the same time, he was getting booked for comedy shows all around the city. Salt and Peppa supported him through it all, showing up at his gigs and cheering him on.
Because I was still dancing with Salt and Peppa, and they used to come up to the club all the time. I mean, and supported, and I think, I remember when I was performing, one performance, Mary J. Blige was in the audience.
Salt and Peppa could see how serious Flex was about his comedy, so they gave him a shot that would change everything. They invited him to open up at their shows. Now, imagine this. Young Flex would step out on stage, hit the crowd with a solid 30 minutes of stand-up comedy, have everybody laughing, then rush backstage, switch clothes, and come right back out as one of their dancers. That kind of grind showed just how much he loved both worlds, comedy and dance.
At that time, I was full on more dancer, comedian. I hadn't gotten into the complete acting thing yet.
Even before all that, Flex was already known for being funny. Back in Harlem, on 125th Street, he used to hang around the barbershop cracking jokes. People in the neighborhood knew him as that kid who could always make you laugh. He was a natural entertainer, even before the big stages. Soon enough, he started moving into television and film. His very first movie appearance came in the 1992 classic Juice. Funny enough, Flex was actually up for the lead role of Q, which later went to Omar Epps. Producers liked him so much, though, that even after Epps got the part, they created a whole new scene just so Flex could still be in the film. That's how he ended up playing the contest auditioner. It wasn't the biggest role, but it was a start.
My first acting gig was Juice. I had auditioned to play myself and Omar Epps for that role, and then of course Omar got it and did a great job, and they gave me a little role.
Around the same time, Flex landed his first TV gig on the sitcom Where I Live. He played the best friend of Dougie Doug, who was basically telling a version of his own childhood story through the show. The sitcom had a tough run, though. The ratings weren't great, and out of the 13 episodes in the first season, only 11 made it on air. Fans did love the show, and even Bill Cosby stepped in as a consultant for season 2 to try and help, but it still wasn't enough. After just 3 episodes into the second season, the network pulled the plug, leaving 7 episodes completely unaired. But Flex didn't stop there. Through the mid-90s, he kept himself busy with guest roles on shows like Sister, New York Undercover, and The Cosby Mysteries. He even popped up in The Parkers later on. By 1995, he had also made his debut on Def Comedy Jam, which was huge for any comedian at that time.
After Def Jam, people definitely, recognized me. They definitely recognized me.
Then came another sitcom opportunity, Homeboys in Outer Space. It was a UPN comedy where Flex co-starred with Daryl M. Bell. The two played astronauts flying through space in a ship called the Space Hoopty. The show hit the air in 1996, but it didn't land well. Critics tore it apart, ratings were weak, and after just 1 season and 21 episodes, it was canceled.
Look, Morris, they got lasers and photons.
Still, Flex kept hustling. He was cast in ABC's drama Total Security, but that show barely made it through either. Out of the 13 episodes produced, only 6 aired before the cancellation hammer came down again. It seemed like every time Flex got a break, the shows never lasted. But then came Girlfriends. In the first season, Flex played Darnell, the husband of Maya, played by Golden Brooks. He appeared in 5 episodes before he left the role, which was later picked up by Khalil Kane. The reason Flex stepped away was because he was preparing for something bigger, his own show. That's when One-on-One was born, the sitcom that finally cemented his place on TV. In the series, he wasn't just some regular TV dad. He was funny, stylish, smooth, and still trying to figure things out like the rest of us, which made him so real. He balanced being a parent with being a friend, and even though he had those moments of panic, he always tried to do right by his daughter, Brianna. The show basically told the story of Flex Washington, played by Flex Alexander, and his teenage daughter, Brianna Barnes, played by Kyla Pratt. It all kicks off when Brianna decides she wants to live with her dad full-time. Up until then, she only got to see him a couple of weeks each year.
Steve Young to Jerry Rice.
I'm Keyshawn Johnson. Pass me the ball and buy my book.
Flex had once been an NBA player, but when a knee injury cut his career short, he went back to school. He actually joked about how rough it was for him because he tried 3 times to get his communications degree, failing twice before finally pulling through. That little detail gave the character some depth. It showed he wasn't perfect, but he was determined. Eventually, Flex landed a job as a sports broadcaster for WYNX-TV in Baltimore. And of course, he was the ultimate bachelor, living good, enjoying the spotlight, and still trying to adjust to suddenly being a full-time dad. One of the biggest things about his character was how protective he was of Brianna. When it came to boys, Flex was on full alert. He wasn't playing any games. And while he had only a few serious relationships, the most important one was with Brianna's mother, Nicole, played by Tichina Arnold. Flex and Nicole had Brianna when they were just 18, so things weren't exactly easy. When Nicole later took a job in Nova Scotia, she let Brianna stay with Flex, and that's how the whole show's premise was born. Now here's the thing. This role was massive for Flex Alexander. It was easily one of the biggest moments in his career. He even left the show Girlfriends after just one episode because he wanted to pour everything into One-on-One. And it worked. The show became a hit, running strong for years. Season 5 premiered on September 19, 2005, and wrapped up on May 15, 2006. But behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth as they looked. Even though One-on-One had great ratings and fans loved it, Season 6 never made it to air. Why? Because that was around the time UPN and the WB merged to create the CW. The shakeup in networks changed everything. Dawn Ostroff, who was president of UPN at the time, decided to rebrand the show completely for Season 5. Instead of keeping the family-centered vibe that had built its loyal audience, they shifted focus to Brianna and her friends in college. Basically, they tried to make it more like a younger hip sitcom.
Keeping your music down, Lisa. Oh, and by the way, nobody even listens.
Fans weren't feeling it. The shift was too drastic, ratings dropped, and the magic of the show just kind of faded. Eventually, the character of Flex Washington got written out completely, leaving Flex Alexander out of a job. Before One-on-One really took off, though, there's one project Flex probably wishes he could erase from his resume: his role as Michael Jackson in VH1's 2004 biopic Man in the Mirror. The movie followed Michael's life after the success of Thriller, covering everything from his family struggles to his marriage with Lisa Marie Presley, the birth of his kids, the allegations, and his trials. On paper, it sounded like a powerful film, but the execution was rough.
I need a smoother transition for the last.
For starters, they couldn't even use any of Michael Jackson's actual music because of legal issues. On top of that, the makeup department handed Flex a giant prosthetic nose to wear for the role, and he refused to put it on. Years later, Flex admitted that when he first saw the nose in the trailer, he knew the whole thing was going to be a disaster. I walked in, saw the prosthetic nose, and I was like, yeah, I'm not wearing that. And he didn't.
Prosthetic nose they wanted to put on me at first. I was like, I'm not wearing that. Oh. And you know, the makeup, they put airbrush and it was airbrush.
The movie ended up being mocked online and was considered one of those so bad it's good projects. Despite the backlash, though, Flex's performance actually earned him a nomination for an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actor in a television movie, miniseries, or dramatic special in 2005. If there's one thing that really went right in Flex Alexander's life besides his career highlights and award nominations, it was marrying Grammy-nominated singer SHANICE. The two tied the knot back in February of 2000, and honestly, their love story is one of those feel-good Hollywood romances that has managed to stand the test of time. SHANICE has always been proud of her man, so much so that she even featured Flex in one of her music videos. That's real love right there. Their relationship actually goes way back, long before the fame, the ups, and the tough times. They first met in the 90s when SHANICE was stepping off the elevator in her apartment building, and from that moment, sparks flew. Fast forward more than 2 decades later, and these two are still standing strong, proving that some Hollywood marriages really can last. When asked how they've kept their marriage strong, Flex and SHANICE always say the same thing: prayer and open communication. They admit it hasn't been perfect, but through ups and downs, they trusted God, leaned on family, and just kept pushing forward together.
We spent a lot of time together as friends, and he told me how much he loved God, and that was my number one thing. I said, I want a man that loved God.
Besides SHANICE's support, Flex leaned heavily on his faith in God during his darkest days. Even when it looked like everything had fallen apart, he refused to let go of prayer. He always believed that God had a bigger plan for him and his family. The financial troubles they faced taught them a hard but important lesson. Money doesn't last if you spend like it's always coming in. These days, Flex and Shanice are much smarter with their money. They live by the motto, spend like no money is coming in, which helps them avoid the mistakes of the past. In April 2021, Flex sat down for an interview on the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. And of course, the topic of his financial struggles came up. The host asked him about the eviction story that made headlines in 2010, when he and Shanice were forced out of their Los Angeles home. A lot of people assumed that it was because of wild spending and poor money management, but Flex was quick to set the record straight. He explained that the truth was different. He wasn't being careless with money. Instead, he had been investing in several houses at the wrong time, and when the market collapsed, those investments dragged everything else down with it.
We not repeat it.
Right.
You know, because we wasn't doing nothing crazy. We wasn't balling. I had bought all this property in Vegas, and it crashed.
Right,
That 2008.
Still, Flex didn't stay down for long. By 2017, he was back on television, hosting Lord Have Mercy, a short series that highlighted funny and wild viral videos. The show didn't last too long. It ran for 10 episodes, but it was another step in his return to the screen. Then, between 2020 and 2021, he appeared in a few episodes of Mixed-ish, showing that he was still very much in the game. In 2021, he also landed a guest role on the sitcom Kenan, keeping his acting career alive. And here's the fun part. Just like so many other classic sitcoms that have found new life thanks to streaming, there's been talk of a possible reboot of One-on-One. Fans have been hoping for it, and from the looks of it, the original cast is definitely open to making it happen. Nothing official has come out yet, but the idea alone has kept fans buzzing and excited about the possibility of seeing Flex Washington back on screen with Brianna and the crew. At the end of the day, Flex's story isn't just about fame, TV shows, or money. It's about resilience, faith, and family. No matter how hard life hit him, he and Shanice never gave up on each other, and that's why they're still standing strong more than 20 years later.